All right. Thank you so much, Valerie. Thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity today, giving me a little bit of your time. I'm Nathan Sinclair. I am the manager for the cyber defense team for the city and county of San Francisco. So today, I'm going to start off with a little bit of cyber safety, just to kind of get everybody warmed up, and then switch over to going into a little bit about cybersecurity and the different jobs and how, some of your skill sets that you may already have are really transferable into the field. A lot of people think that some of their skill set is not transferable over, and you'll be surprised in the skills that you have and where you can fit. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So just to break down what we're going to start, I'm going to kind of go through, these are the topics we're going to go through. And at any time, if you have a question or anything, feel free to jump in. I like to keep it kind of interactive. But we're going to start with what is cyber safety, jump into like key accounts for your cyber stuff, how to stay cyber safe at home, on the move, and then also give you some resources and reporting options of if you do become a target. Hopefully you don't, but just kind of some of those options that you can use, either if you're here in the Bay Area or wherever you are. This will be able to help you identify where to actually report these different issues to. So the first thing I'm going to start with is, what is cyber safety? And so we define it as the security of people and information when using the internet. And so, of course, the internet is a vast area for everything. And so a lot of people ask us is, how do we stay safe? So on your screen right now, you're looking at an email that we get most commonly. And so the question I want you to ask yourselves when you read this email that I have on the screen, does this look fake or does it look real to you? And if you were to get this kind of email, what would you do when you got it? It looks like it's from PayPal. They sound just like PayPal. They have basically identical wording, just like PayPal would have, but are you able to identify if it's real or fake? And actually, I'm actually going to ask this to you all. Anybody can chime in right now. Do you think this is real or fake? Anybody can say yes or no. Okay, that's good. All right, I see a lot of you are saying that it's fake. And so my next question is, what was the telltale sign in this email that gave you, perfect. Jamie, you're right, you're on it, the email address, absolutely. That is the key indicator in here that definitely tells you that it's fake. Perfect. Now, the next question you would ask yourself, what would you do with this email after you do that? So of course, PayPal, many of you know, they have a phishing email address. You would forward it over. One thing in this email that most of you may not even see in here, but the login and the resolution center links are highlighted. So of course, if this was real email, you would be able to highlight or hover over that. In most cases, that login could actually probably take you to a fake page to actually steal or take your credentials, right? This is some of the things that we go through with our users in the city about not giving away your credentials. And later on in the talk, I actually bring up a new variant of an email that I want to make sure I share with the community to be aware of that's actually out there right now today. Just to give another example, this is taken from an actual Craigslist post. And so this one is a little bit different, but I want you all to read this one as well and ask yourselves if this is real or fake. Because this one it could go either way. And there's some different indicators in here that can either let you know which way you should go with it. So it's from Craigslist, because everyone posts jobs on Craigslist. They post them everywhere. And they are asking some general information, normally what certain folks would ask you when they do a posting online, especially like Craigslist like this. But there are some telltale signs in here that would give you an idea if it was real or fake or not. So I'm going to ask you one more time. What do you think, real or fake, looking at this right now? Okay, I got 2 fakes. Okay. And what was the indicators in here that was thrown to you that would tell you that it's fake? Okay. The personal credit info. Okay. Anyone else want to take a stab at it? Okay. All right. So everyone that said it was fake, you're absolutely right. The one telltale thing is the credit info. Most of the time, if you're applying for a job, they already have your social security number. So there's no reason why they would ask you to go somewhere else to do a credit check. They already do that. Um, Also in here, there's also, why would you send in the confirmation number for that? You wouldn't, right? Um, and what we've seen and what I've seen is that some of these folks make these emails look really real, not just post, but they'll actually ask you to, purchase gift cards. They send emails that make it look like they're coming from a manager or someone higher up to make them look like they're real. So you can do that. But everyone that said it's fake, good job. The question I would ask is, what do you think they're trying to steal? And there's a lot of people, they know what they're trying to steal, but when we actually break it down, it's a lot more than what you think. Of course, money, because with your credit card information, your username and password. Think about what that last slide asked. It was actually asking the individual to go to that. We have set up a situation where we're going to do a credit check. Well, as an individual user, you really don't know if that site is actually a legitimate site. So that site could steal your username and password. It could take any of your PII information, your personal identifying information. And then once they have that, they can access just about pretty much anything they want after they get that. A couple of things that we define in the industry, things to be aware of online. So, most of you may have heard of malware, phishing, predators, and spam. So sometimes we have users that get the spam and phishing kind of mixed up with each other. And this is the top thing that we're seeing right now, especially for COVID-19. So from January to March, when COVID-19 started, we have seen almost a quadruple increase in phishing emails that related to COVID-19 for phishing scams, where people have set up, fake email addresses, fake domains that look very, very real for people to either, buy masks or donate money. But these are like targeted attacks directly to people, not only just the common people, but they really target, high officials like mayors, people that have access to certain resources in a company. They've been really exploiting this huge. The malware front, that's kind of stayed the same that we've seen, but malware is the application that comes after the phishing email. So there's different attack stages in when these messages come through. So if you get a phishing email, normally it'll have a link or something in there to steal from you. Well, normally when you click on the link, that's when the malware is actually delivered to your machine, or part of the malware. So there's different stages of the process in when hackers take over machines, and vice versa. And that's something that later on we can go into detail on, the different stages of how malware and how phishing links and how all of that stuff links up. Because what we've seen is that most of our users, they assume that as soon as they click the link that their machine is infected or something's going on, but that's not necessarily the case. We have now know that the way everything has shifted, hackers and people that steal information, they actually try not to damage anything. They actually want to stay silent and dormant, and they want to steal things very, very quiet. They don't want to really damage everything until they get all the money out of you. A lot of things been in the news lately, back last year with Baltimore and a lot of other different government agencies that have gotten attacked, is they have gotten attacked by the use of phishing emails, by one person clicking on a link. So I'm going to jump over to now we consider what are key accounts. Key accounts are accounts that include a platform or a website where specific identifiable and exploitable information is stored. So when you think about those kind of accounts, and I want you all to think to yourselves, you know, all the accounts that you may have information on. So if you do shopping online, so Amazon, Walmart, Target, Gmail, your email accounts, PayPal, anywhere that you have a login that has your information stored is considered a key account, because that information is tailored and is basically identified for you. With those key accounts, you know, people are able to decipher a lot about you as an individual. I've seen in my line of work that some folks, they use their work emails for personal use, and you kind of want to keep those accounts separate, and try not to use the same passwords, try not to use the same identifiable information across the accounts, because once they have that key to one account, normally it's used across the whole shebang of your accounts, and that's how they're able to steal the money or steal whatever they need to get from you, right? This is a short video that I'm going to play right now. We pulled this from Symantec, and it was a kind of a good video for just showing some key stuff. So I'm going to play this for a minute. It's about 2 minutes long, and then I'm going to move on to the next slide and then see if there's any questions in the chat. Oops. Oh, sorry. I saw that. Let me see what's going on. All right.
Think about this. Social networks have become commonplace in everyday life. On social networks, you are surrounded by your friends, family, and colleagues. You have a lot of connections, potentially making you more susceptible to scams or malware attacks. This happens because some of your connections may not be who they claim to be. They could be impersonators. An impersonator may try to get you to send them money, download malware, or learn personal information about you. Think about this. Have you ever known anyone who has completed a social media personality survey for fun, where they likely answered questions that included their name, email, their pet's name, make, model of their first car, place of birth, favorite vacation destination, or even their first concert? Questions like these may seem innocent enough, but the answers you give could potentially reveal information used for security verification elsewhere. For example, have you ever had to set a verbal passphrase for a home security system, or answer a secret question for your bank that they could use later to be able to identify you specifically should you ever need to reset your password or access an account after being locked out? Imagine an impersonator only needs 2 pieces of personally identifiable information in order to impersonate you. Many times, incorrect privacy settings or randomly accepted friend requests from strangers make gathering your personal information easier for attackers. In this case, the attacker can gather your information to scam you, or, given enough information, even steal your identity. So, the next time you're on a social network, be sure you check your privacy settings, accept invitations only from people you know and have verified, never be too specific on events or your location, do not overshare personal information, and make sure you understand and comply with your company's social media policy when at work. Security is non-negotiable, and security awareness isn't limited to the workplace. Be sure to talk to your friends and family about the inherent security risks associated with their actions at work, at home, and at school, whether they're online or not.
Okay. Sorry about that audio hiccup there. So yeah, that was just a short video of kind of staying social media safe, social safe, right? And we share this with everyone, and it's kind of common, you know, if you look at all the questions that they ask you when you set up your account, they do ask you just basic questions. You know, some of them are your address, your favorite place, your dog, teacher, school, which, you know, a lot of us, if you really think about it, we have all that information already posted everywhere on Facebook, LinkedIn, different places that sometimes we're not aware of, that our settings aren't set correctly. So that's one thing that we strive for our users in our community when we talk to them, is that to check your settings. A lot of people don't check the settings. You know, they have a Facebook account and they have 100 people on their friends list, but they don't only know about 6 of them. You know, and those 6 people have 100 people, or those 100 people have another 100 people, and now you have all of these other folks that can see your information. So when this slide right here shows like your common key accounts, like I was referring to earlier. So like your social media accounts, your banking, your online shopping, and email. So like all of these accounts, you know, sometimes we really don't think about how much information we actually have out here in the world, for people to actually take from. Okay, question. All right. What about when accessing online bank accounts like Citibank, Chase, they don't have even MFA? So that's a good question. So they actually, some of them, most of them do. What they don't do is they don't force you to use MFA. And for MFA, multi-factor authentication, so we consider it MFA as a second factor, right? So your username and your password is the first factor, and normally they'll send you a text message to your phone for the second factor. So most of those banks, they do have it. So what I would do is I would log into your account and see if they have the options in there, and they just don't have it turned on. They're not enforcing you to use it, which me personally, I think they shouldn't force you to use it. This is a struggle that we've had in my job, where people don't want to use MFA. And this is one of the, I'm glad you brought that question up, because this is one thing that I actually use as an example, is that most of the time when you go to a banking institution or you go to certain sites, they don't ask you if you want to use MFA. They make you use MFA. And it's for 2 reasons. One is to protect you, but it's also to protect them. Because if by some means someone gets your password, or, you know, some strange thing, they're trying to protect themselves from liability as well. Oh, so they don't have it. Okay. I'll actually pull some resources together, because they should have. I know most of them should have it now, and that's one thing that everyone's trying to go to, because we're trying to move away from passwords. And having MFA allows you to allow, you know, individuals to keep whatever password you want. So you can have your password as your dog's name if you have MFA, because at that point, no one could get into your account, quote unquote, because they don't have the second factor to get in. So that's interesting. Okay, I'm taking a note of that, because I actually want to see. Yeah, definitely, I will. Yeah, especially a bank. That is crazy, because I know my you know, I have a USAA account, and that's the first thing that they had me set up when I set my account up, was to download the app and use MFA. Yeah. Ah, okay. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. And so we're still talking about accounts. So best practices for accounts. So like I was saying with paraphrases, with passwords, one of the good things is to use a paraphrase. You know, my best childhood friend is John. So you substitute, you know, I's for ones or O's for zeros. And you kind of think about a statement or something that you say all the time, and you change the little characters around to fit you best. And paraphrases are really good, because you can have paraphrases that are very long, that only you will remember, and most of the time only that you would say. Another good reason why a paraphrase is good is because if someone uses a password hacker on this password, it's going to take the password cracker a very long time, depending on what kind of paraphrase you have, to actually break through. So, you know, they call them dictionary attacks. So they have common words and phrases they use in these crackers to try to get a password. And so those are found out very, very quick. But when you use a paraphrase that is not in a dictionary, that has the O's turned to zeros, and the I's to ones, and the E's to threes, it makes it that much more difficult for someone to actually try to get into your account. Another thing is limiting your personal information that you share online. So how much information you share on your social media accounts. And it's not so much of how much you share, it's actually making sure you realize who you're sharing it to. Sometimes, you know, like our friends at Facebook and other social media platforms, they make changes to their platform, but they don't actually explain to you what the permissions on the back end actually are doing. And so you have potentially have a open hole to your information and not know it. So I would suggest that you regularly check those settings, you know, just to make sure that you're actually sharing the content that you want to share. Um, and the last thing is making sure that websites that you go to are actually secure. And there's two things I want to talk about that. So most websites, when you go to banks, they have that little lock, and that tells you that they have a valid certificate, they're secure. Sometimes you go to some websites that don't have that lock. And so that's where you have to use your judgment, right? So not saying that the website isn't secure, but if that website is asking you to put in, let's just say, I don't know, a credit card number, if it's asking you to put in like some information that is identifying you, I would possibly think about it before I actually would send it. Or if it's actually to create a password on it, because at that point, with the site not being secure, it's exposed. And not saying that someone is actually on the site taking it over, it has the potential for someone to take it over. I have, you know, I've bought stuff off sites that don't have this particular lock and this identifier, but I didn't mind it because when I went to pay for it, it actually took me to PayPal's actual website or to Square's website. So they offloaded the risk directly to the person that's going to take the payment. So you're not actually putting your information into their website. But this is some common things to look out for. And mostly all sites, especially the modern browsers. So if you use Chrome or Firefox, Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer, we call those the modern browsers because they actually now, some of those browsers will not go to websites that don't have this green lock or have a check block like this. They'll actually pop up on your screen or won't let you go to the site. Or if you do go to the site, you have to click through the exclusions to get to it before you can go. And that's just the, you know, the browsers themselves and the developers of the browsers to protect the end user. Staying cyber safe at home. So our definition of that, oh, sorry. Okay, so question is, for social media sites, what about LinkedIn? Has so much of our personal details job. That's true. So for me, you're right. That it is a professional thing, but you know, you have to be cautious there too, because hackers, people, even though it's a professional platform, they are designed and trained to fit in with everyone else. So you do have to do some investigative work. If it's someone that's asking you to be a friend or like on LinkedIn and you really don't know who they are, me personally, I don't necessarily add everyone to my LinkedIn unless I've had some kind of interaction with them. I have individuals that will ping me on LinkedIn because of my job title, because I work for this, you know, for San Francisco, for products to, you know, look at a product, to talk to me about certain things. And so normally I won't add them to LinkedIn. If I really have the time and if I really want to talk to them, I'll actually, if they have a contact info in their LinkedIn, I'll call them. And I'll do that. We'll have a conversation first because I need to see or hear who you actually are. A good example is that I had another city and county actually reach out to me on LinkedIn. And instead of them having their security folks reach out to me, they had an intern reach out to me, which I thought was kind of odd. So I was leery about adding the intern on LinkedIn because I wasn't sure if the actual intern was actually from the county. So I ended up picking up the phone and talking to someone and to do my own verification. So I would just be mindful of who you're adding to your professional portfolio on LinkedIn, because not everyone is who they say they are on LinkedIn. It's surprising or not. So like I was saying, staying safe at home, you know, protecting your home network requires having the right tools in place and confidence that you use the internet safely and secure. So for that, you know, we don't endorse tools, but like some of the best practices at home that we always say is always keep your software up to date. So if you're using a Mac, if you're using a Windows machine, run your updates. Make sure you run your updates. Updating your machine is one of the biggest things to close those vulnerabilities for, for especially, like for Microsoft, Patch Tuesday. They do a very good job of sending out patches on a regular basis, but keep those machines up to date. What we've seen in the trends is that people that exploit others or get into systems and take over companies, they're not using any new technology. They're using vulnerabilities that have been out there for years that no one has patched, no one has ran an update, and they're just using that same vulnerability to get into the system. So keep your software up to date. And that's not just for your OS, that's for if you're using, like SQL, if you're using development tools, if you're Adobe, Java, hopefully you're not using Java, but if you are, keep that stuff up to date, because those applications have their own vulnerabilities in themselves that could leave you exposed. And most platforms now, if you use a platform as a service, you don't have to worry about that because they patch it for you. You're just using the tools in their platform to host your stuff, and they do all the other stuff for you on the back end, which is huge. Another best practice is don't plug USB drives in for people you don't know. A good example of that is, it was actually a test that a company did. They had a bag of USBs it was a prank. It was for cyber awareness. They actually dropped USBs throughout the parking lot in their office. And on those USBs, the people didn't know, their employees didn't know, but when they plugged it into their computer, it actually said, it pivoted them straight to cybersecurity training, essentially, to tell them why they shouldn't do that and why they shouldn't be plugging this in. But that's the kind of stuff you have to be leery of. We had a situation where we had some folks that came from somewhere, and they actually gave us a USB, and we didn't plug it in on the machine in our network. We actually plugged it in somewhere else just to have it analyzed. And lo and behold, the USB actually did have some malicious content in it that would have done some damage to our network if we had actually used it. So, if you don't know where it came from, don't plug it into anything that you really care about. Plug it into something else if you want to really see what it is. Don't plug it into your own machine. Take it somewhere, or have someone else look at it if you know someone. Other thing is back up your information. I think this is I should have highlighted that, back up your information. What we've seen now is that a lot of hackers and people that are stealing your data, you'll get this thing a couple of years ago, and some of them still have it. You get the ransomware, and your machine locks up, and they say, "Oh, you have to give me this amount of Bitcoin or send this money to this, email address in order to get your information back." If you back up your information, you don't have to pay them. Other thing is to remember is that even if you paid them, how do you know that the key that they're going to give you is actually going to unlock your machine to get your data? And then you're hoping that your data that they encrypted is actually readable. So if you back all your information up, you don't have to worry about it. So take advantage of those free backups that you get. Like, so when you get like a Samsung or Apple phone, Apple has iCloud, Samsung has their own cloud. Gmail by default actually backs up your contacts and your stuff to your Gmail account. Anything, if you go in there and set it up, use those, because now you're actually minimizing your risk of having to worry about, if something happens to this, what am I going to do? Well, you don't have to worry. It's backed up every single day. You could throw your phone or your computer not saying go do it, but you could throw it in the water, or somebody could take it, and you're not concerned about the data on it because you have a backup of it. And the last one is install antivirus software. So this is where I said I don't endorse any one particular antivirus, but this is just some of the common ones that we've seen. So Windows Defender is probably the one that is known for everyone who has a Windows machine, because it's already built into the operating system. And of course, Bitdefender and Zone Alarm, some of those. One of the things I get all the time is a lot of my folks we have a lot of Mac users in our environment. And I always get this conversation of that Macs do not get viruses. I don't know how many of you out there believe that. And I have a Mac, and I'm not biased. I have a Mac and I have a PC, but do not believe the hype. Macs do get viruses. Macs get viruses more than what you think, because Macs now have a chip just like a PC. They run an Intel chip just like a PC. So they are susceptible to getting viruses just like a PC does. Some cases you just don't know it, but they can get infected. So I don't think they can. Okay, question. How reliable is Windows Defender that comes with Windows 10 versus Trend Micro, AVG, etc.? So it, honestly, it really depends. I mean, all of those are really good. They're all signature based antiviruses. It's the Windows Defender is probably, I would say, Windows Defender is probably going to see something before one of those antivirus sees it, because if you think about how many people have Windows machines, if one machine, let's just say somewhere, I don't know, let's just say somewhere far across the globe gets infected and it's a Windows machine and Windows Defender is present, as soon as that machine sends that information up to the Microsoft cloud to get analyzed, they now have the ability to write that signature and push it down to every single machine, right, that has it. So it's really, I don't want to say which one is better. It's really, you have to think about whose intel is better. So I would say they're probably all comparable. I would go with what you're comfortable with. But I would probably put like a trend on. AVG is a good one. I've noticed though, when you use the free version, it has a whole lot of pop-ups and they try to sell you all this other stuff. But so if you're gonna get it, I wouldn't settle for the free one necessarily. I would probably go with the full version if I had to. Right now, I think on my machines I run Zone Alarm. Zone Alarm and I only run the ransomware part. I don't even run the full blown antivirus, because Windows Defender is present and then Zone Alarm has the ransomware part. So I feel like they both in conjunction with each other will do a good job of protecting the machine. But yeah, and I do a lot of stuff on my machine. So Windows Defender, if you have a Windows machine, it's actually already built into the operating system. So if you were to actually go to your your settings, click on the Windows icon and go to settings, there should be a Windows. I think it changed from Windows Defender. It may be called something else now. Actually, it's called, since I'm on my machine, it is called under Windows Security. That's what it's called now. So it's not called Windows Defender. It's called Windows Security. So if you go to click on your Windows icon and go to settings, there should be a thing in there called Windows Security, and you will see the protection checkboxes that it has, that it's already built in. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to jump over to is staying safe on the move. So we kind of brushed the topic already about staying safe on the move. So staying safe on the move has to do with anything, not just your mobile device, but a tablet, mobile phone, laptop, everything. And I feel like these are the most vulnerable because we all have phones and we put everything in our phone, including credit cards, pictures, you have Facebook, everything is there. So this is, for us, for me, is one of the most vulnerable locations. I feel like we have the most data. So for on the move, some basic practices and tips is don't assume free Wi-Fi is secure. And this is a good one. So when you go to Starbucks, McDonald's, libraries, when you go to different free Wi-Fi sites, don't assume that those Wi-Fis are secure. Because most of them aren't. They don't really have security on them. They're free. It's kind of like, if it's free, it's kind of like that's what you get. So you should really be mindful when connecting. Oh, I'm sorry, TikTok. There's a question in the chat. Is it true that TikTok is selling our information when we have it on our phones? So that's a good question. So some of the data, I've heard that it is being sold. It's kind of like what Facebook used to do or still does, and Google does with all of our stuff for ads. I think now they're going to put something there where you can actually opt out of it. And I can go into detail on that in a few here. But on the move, free Wi-Fi is not always secure. So be mindful of going to banking websites, anything that requires you to put in a credit card number on those on those Wi-Fis. There are some ways you can protect yourself. Another thing is always keep your mobile devices up to date. So iPhones, any cell phone, your tablets, do those security patches and those updates that come out on your phone. So I know some folks, they don't like to, oh, I don't want to do the update because it changes the way my phone looks. Well, the change in the UI is one thing, but the big risk of you that you're leaving open by not updating to the latest software is a whole nother one. So you're same thing with the apps on your phone. So all the phones now have apps. Run your apps. I ran some updates, I think, on my wife's phone one time, and she doesn't know, but she had like 20 updates on apps, and those things, is better to actually enable automatic update for some of those because they come out so frequent. For me, I don't do automatic. I'm always in there updating my own apps because some apps I don't want updated versus some that I do. But I always check myself because I want to see what permissions they may be asking for or what's changing here or there. But always keep those things up to date. Developers work hard to write this code, and they have people to find these holes in the software, and so those patches are there to actually fix those vulnerabilities right then and there. And there's a few back, even back with Apple, with having your phone in one place and somebody could take over and hear it. Same thing with Android, taking over your camera and having it on. Even with laptops, with vulnerabilities, they had it where they could take over your camera and your laptop and you wouldn't know it's on. So that's why it's very important to keep this stuff up to date. And also considering putting actual antivirus software on your phone. And this is just a few that are out there. I've been a big user of Lookout Mobile just because it comes with my carrier, and they give you like the premium one with your plan. But what it does is it scans. So when you download an app, it'll scan the app before it's installed to see if it's malicious. And then they monitor all kind of other stuff. And they also back up your content. So they back up your contacts and certain things that you want. And also you also have the ability that if you lose your phone, you can lock your phone remotely. So I know that some things like Apple has that built in when you connect your phone with the iCloud and everything. Like Lookout Mobile has that stuff built in as well, where you can lock your phone, or if you lose it, you can make the ringer go off where they can't turn it off. So this is just some best practices that that I would recommend if you're not already doing it, to actually start doing it. And another big one is actually having a lock on your phone. So I know a lot of people who walk around where their phones are basically wide open. They're unlocked. I can take their phone and just open it up. If anything, if you don't want to use your face, that's fine. Put a passcode, a pattern, or fingerprint on your phone. Because the worst thing that you want to do is to accidentally leave your phone somewhere. And I think in that previous slide that I showed, our phones have a lot of our personal data in them. They have our credit cards. They have, if you think about apps for insurance, they have your insurance cards. Some of us have pictures of our IDs in there because we don't want to carry a wallet. So think about our phone as just another mechanism. It's just like a computer. If you don't have a lock, just like on a computer, you have a login to log in, make sure you have a login into your phone. I even have it where it's set up on mine that if you try to log into my phone too many times with the wrong fingerprint or pattern, it locks itself out. But then after the 10th try, it actually wipes itself. Now, I'm not concerned about it wiping itself because I have everything backed up. But that's just a fail-safe mechanism to where, you know that if someone tries after the 10th time, the phone's, wiped out and you're fine. Also, Lookout Mobile, one of the ones in Norton, they also have the feature where if someone tries to log into your phone and they don't know the password, it actually takes a picture of them from the camera in the front and it sends it to you in email. So you know who's actually trying to access your phone. And it is actually pretty funny when you actually see it. I tried it myself and my son did that. And I was like, oh, man, you're trying to get my phone, huh? All right. So I'm going to pause here for a minute because this is where we're going to change topics. So that whole session that we just went through was kind of staying cyber safe. And I wanted to kind of pause and see if there's any questions, but then also we're going to switch over to cybersecurity jobs in the industry and how maybe you could pivot over to cybersecurity. Okay, so question in chat is when we ourselves Google our line, there is so much personal data companies are selling. If you pay them, such as, what can we do about that and stop it? Oh, wait a minute. So let me pull up this PeopleWiz. If this is something that I think I know it is, and I'm just going to pull it up in my browser real quick just so I can take a peek because I think I've seen them before. Yeah, okay. So yeah, this is one of the sites that you can look up. So you can actually, with these type of sites to have your information, because you know your information is public, but you can actually go to these sites and request that they remove your information. As quiet as it's kept. They don't, in California, I think it's more prevalent. They have to publicize it, but mostly all of them, there is a way. You either can do, they have an online forum for these particular sites, and they also have email addresses. And so what you do is you go into that site, you search for yourself, you find the information of the records, and you write down the and there are multiple sites. So if I don't know if how many of you've done that research before, but some of those sites are actually linked to each other. So even though it's one site may have this, when you go to actually take your information down, it's actually for multiple sites. So I've done this for someone in the past. They had all of their information out there, and I was able to get about 99% of their stuff off. So I literally went to the forum, put in the record IDs that I had, and submitted them. And now when that person does a search for themselves, they actually don't see any of that information that they found out there before. And it's free. They never are supposed to charge you to do that, ever. So if any one of those companies say, oh, well, you have to pay us money to take it down, that is not true. There's actually a law that you can opt out of your information being shared. And also another thing, most sites now, when you sign up for an account, they actually give you the option to opt out of sharing your information. So I would definitely take advantage of that, especially because you know a lot of these sites online do sell your information. Opt out of it in the beginning. And if you don't do it, then you can always go back and opt out, because they have to ask you that now. That's one of the things I think was passed not too long ago, a while ago actually, for that stuff. But for the multiple sites, you may see that one site actually covers multiple sites that have your information on. So I think like PeopleWiz, I think is linked to another site that I did something with, and it took it off there too. So I wanted to give a little quick pause to see if there are any questions before we move on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, we're going to pivot over into cybersecurity, like jobs in the cybersecurity industry itself. And so the slide that I have here, it goes into this kind of some of the basic cybersecurity job types, and the metrics that was taken that I took this from, they took it from 2018. The number of 454,000 jobs, the shortage, that number is actually way higher now. That number is, oh, sorry, looking at the wrong, oh, there we go. Okay, so sorry, one question here. So Victor, are auto-generated passwords on browsers safe? So it depends on what you're using. So I use Lastpass. Now, Lastpass they generate now. Oh, so I wouldn't use some passwords in the browsers. I would probably use like Lastpass's generator. I use that one mostly because their algorithm key is a little bit stronger. And in the past, mind you, LastPass did get hacked, but they got hacked, not the people's data. It was a different, you have to read the papers to understand how they got hacked, but I would use something like their password generator. The reason why is because the way they generate the password, it's highly unlikely that someone is going to be able to generate that password again. That's one thing that we look for when we look at auto-generated password devices, is how long it will take for that password to ever come back. That's really what it's about. And so their algorithm actually is pretty good. Plus, you can make the passwords as long as you want. And if you use LastPass, you don't ever have to remember the password because it's in the browser. It's already saved in their platform. So I would go that route, and I actually use them quite often. They do have a free one. They have a paid one where you can share your passwords with your family and stuff like that. But that's what I've been going with. And there's a few others out there too. And I actually put some resources to some other password generators and password safe sites too, as well. I have not used PassPack, but I have heard of it. I'm gonna check them out though. My coworker uses PassPack actually, and he was trying to get me to use it, but I already had LastPass. So there's one, PassPack. Okay. I want to make sure I don't miss any questions, so I'm making sure I look at all the questions. Okay. All right. So, like I said, looking at the metrics, like the industry for cybersecurity, there's not enough people to fill the jobs at all. And so, if you're ever thinking about if you want to try to make cybersecurity your career path, this is the perfect opportunity. There's like a negative unemployment rate in cybersecurity, and I don't say that to be funny. I'm being literally serious. If you look at like the federal government, state agencies, cities and counties, they can't keep people employed because they're getting poached. So people are jumping over to go to the private sector. So because of the money, and granted, some of the jobs aren't for certain places aren't paying a whole lot, but some of them are. But they still get poached from like Visa, Mastercard, banks, Facebook, Google, Salesforce, Microsoft, you name it. So those jobs, so cybersecurity, like there's a ton of jobs that are available. And so just looking at some of the jobs, you have your security generalist, network security engineer, cloud security engineer, application security, malware forensic analyst, a cryptographer, security auditor, governance, risk and compliance. And it's you may read these and say, well, I don't know if I can do that job. So my team is a team of 4. And so, just to give you all a background of my career, I didn't start off as a security person. I actually started off as an intern, and I started off as a desktop support technician. And then I moved on to become a network engineer. So when I actually landed my feet in San Francisco, I actually didn't go to San Francisco to be in security. I actually went there to be a network engineer, but I never made it. I actually made it into the cybersecurity field because that one was open and it had engineer on it. And it was something that I had never done. So I said, well, my skills were transferable to it. So me having networking background, having desktop background, being a network administrator, all of that I was able to use that and pivot to cybersecurity. Because if you look at one of the jobs, like I said, network security engineer, well, my skills of knowing how to manage network devices and setting up switches and routers is actually huge being a network security engineer, because you have to know how the devices work in order to secure them and how a network works. So my team of 4, my first hire that I ever did for my team was a programmer. Sorry. And the reason why I hired a programmer is because all of the security tools that we have today, they use APIs, they use code, Python, you name it, to make them work. And so I needed someone to be able to make all of the tools that we have and we use to monitor our networks talk to each other. So I hired a coder, and he codes and builds integrations and builds apps for that. Now, he went to school. Half of his schooling was cyber, but his main focus was programming development. And so his skill set is how we're able to make all of the stuff that we use today to monitor and everything that we do. He's the reason why we can do it. And so this is just a small list of cybersecurity jobs, but there's tons of jobs in cybersecurity and skills. So this page right here, I kind of took the definitions of what each one of these jobs, some of the job titles do. So if like an analyst, like it would say, you analyze a vulnerability, hardware, you investigate with tools, you look at vulnerabilities, you look at the infrastructure to see, when an incident happens, or you're like the analyst is the first line of defense per se. So that's a good place for if anyone wants to start in cyber. I would think if you like analyzing vulnerabilities, if you like looking at alerts, if you like being in the middle of incidents when they happen, starting as an analyst is a good place to be, because you're going to get exposed to everything cyber related, even if you don't want to, you're going to be there because you are the first line of defense. a security engineer, security architect. They have two. It's interesting how they break these down, but they actually have kind of similar roles, but they don't. So even though the engineer does part of the monitoring, just like the analyst does, the engineer is actually the one that actually implements the tools. So the architect is the one that helps design it and secures it, make sure that the right protocols are in place, make sure that there's no vulnerabilities that the analyst picks up. But the engineer is the one that actually takes that design and puts it in and looks at the technology and makes sure that everything's running. And so that's what I started as when I went to the city. I was a security engineer. I was the guy that put in the new tools with the architect and stood them up and then maintained them as we use them throughout the enterprise. One that that I'm going to hone in on is the security software developer. So develop security software, including tools for monitoring traffic, intrusion detection, the whole nine. So a lot of folks that I talk to, they forget that development is the biggest part. So when you look at folks that reverse engineer malware or that break down malware or viruses, that's all code. That has nothing to do with the appliance or the hardware that's installed. That's all code. So all of the skill sets of coding and development and all that stuff comes into play into cybersecurity. And that, I think that's the pivotal change in the industry now. Before, security wasn't as prevalent as it was. It never was one of the things that any enterprise focused on, but cybersecurity now has become the main focal point of everyone's life. And a lot of companies now are shifting from, so if you're ever concerned about, like, well, I don't know networking, or I'm not really the hands-on technical person, I'll be honest with you, you don't have to be. It helps, but you really don't have to be. The companies, the big companies now, they're switching over from being hardware centric to more software centric, to more software defined. So it's not, you don't have to really know how to configure it because it's all done by software and code and APIs. So the mindset of traditional engineers, even my own, is starting to, you have to change it, because if you don't, you get left behind. But this is just summaries of some of the basic jobs in cybersecurity that some people come across. And the slide I have here is kind of like cybersecurity FAQ. So the first question I always get is, do I need a college degree for cybersecurity? And yeah, like it says here, the short answer is no. Yes, a degree helps, but and so I'm just going to be very transparent with everyone on the call. So I didn't go to college. I went to colleges, but I never finished them. And it's not that I didn't want to, it's just that I couldn't sit still in a classroom long enough to even get enjoyment out of the class. So I took the other approach and I got my certification. So I attended classes in Berkeley. I went to community college. I went to different places to try to see if I could get that 4-year degree. It just didn't work for me. So I got certification. So down below, I kind of listed some of the basic certifications that, and I wouldn't say basic, I would say some of the heavy certs that you can get to actually get recognition in the industry. So like CompTIA has a ton of them, and Security Plus is something that for cyber, but, oh, sorry, let me jump in the chat real quick. I see a question pop up. So you know what? So the CISSP is the industry standard. So I would say I would do the CISSP, but if you did the other one, I wouldn't say they're equal, but they still hold, both of them still hold weight. But if you want to be universal in the industry, I would do the CISSP, just because the CISSP covers everything. And just so you all see, this is one of the CISSP books. And yes, this thing is ginormous. The CISSP book itself and the certification covers not just security. That's the thing. So that's why this is universal, because they cover everything from, so if you look on the slide, you have the Network Plus and all that stuff. They actually talk about networking, the CISSP. They talk about networking. They talk about desktop stuff. They talk about risk and loss and money. So this is probably one of the hardest certifications I've ever done in my life, and I have to take it again because I have to renew it. It is no joke, but once you get it, it's the industry standard for like certs, one of them at least. And the certs that are here. So the question is the CISSP technical or more policy based? It's actually a mixture of both. So the way they have it broken down by domains. And so the different domains cover actually different things. So some domains are technical and some are policy based. Some are geared to, like, if you were to ever become a CISO, so as a chief information security officer. So it's a mixture of all of it. And they have like prereqs before they actually have you go take the test, because they want to make sure that you don't waste your money and fail. But it's one of those kind of tests. If you do a boot camp, I would highly suggest before you go take the CISSP, if you haven't been in like networking or some technical field, to brush up, get the book, read it, then go to the boot camp, because the boot camp, the instructors are going to assume that you know already before you take the test. And they will ask you, they have like prereqs before you go. But yeah, no, it's a mixture. So yeah, these are some of the certifications. But one thing I wanted to point out in this slide is that you see how these certifications are not just really all security based. You see how some, like Cisco, is a security company, but they're a networking company. And you see how some of these certifications for them, they all go hand in hand. So if you want to become a security architect, well, having a CCNA benefits you, because a CCNA, you know how switching and routing is. So now it's going to be easier for you to know how to secure the network. Another one is the CEH, a certified ethical hacker. So it's not just about networking. So they have certifications for you to know how to exploit vulnerabilities, or how to be a pen tester, you can be the person that does a penetration test for a company, and then you give them a report and you show them where they're weak, and then they have to go fix it. So all of these certs, there's a vast amount of different jobs, different certs that you can do. And this is just a scratch of the surface. This is just the ones that are common. But remember, the companies themselves have certifications. So one company that we deal with for our security stuff, we have like FireEye, and I hold just about every cert -1 for that particular company, because I wanted to know how to use all of their gear, like I work for the company. Like Microsoft has certifications for certain things in security. So these are just the baseline certs that you can get, but these baseline certs are enough to actually get you into cyber. You don't actually have to necessarily go to a 4-year university to get into this industry. It's not like that anymore. Your experience holds weight in some jobs, just like if you went to a 4-year college. Some city government agencies, they actually have prereqs where they'll look and say, okay, if you've been in the field for a certain amount of years, well, it actually qualifies you to have a BS, a bachelor's of science or whatever, to qualify for the job. So it's, don't let those job descriptions deter you, because you don't always have to have that degree to get in. Having the experience, or even having just the certification, is enough to get you an interview. And that's the key point. You want to get your foot in the door to then show the people who are on the interview panel that you know what you're doing, or that you're willing to learn, that you're not just someone who just wants to sit there. Okay. So question that came up is, what type of certification should I get to be in content protection, privacy, DRM, media security? So that's a good one. So there's a couple. So it depends, honestly, it depends on where the content's going to be. So a lot of new certs that are coming out is cloud security certifications. So like Amazon and Google, they have a new track that's been out now for a while for cloud security. I would definitely look at those. I would definitely look into the CISSP. Now, if you're just getting into this for the first time, I would probably start a security plus, and that's just the intro. That's to get your mind going, to get you going before you pivot over into something else, into one of these other ones. But I would probably look at the CISSP, and I will have to look up another one, but there's one that is for like data classification, for like, that would definitely go for media. So there's some companies who have data officers, and the data officer is responsible for data classification. So I would definitely look into that as well. And that was from the question and answer. And then we have another question in the chat. To go from Sec Plus to CISSP, what's the route you suggest in between? If you go from Security Plus to CISSP, I would hope that you would have the experience in between. You can do it. It's just the experience. So I'll be honest, I wouldn't want to set you up to fail and say just go straight to it. I would take the Security Plus, try to get your foot into the door. I would say at least between 1 and 2. The reason why I say that is because if you have at least 1 year experience, you could get an entry level position, right? You can get into like a junior engineer position. So on my team, like my team of 4, I have a junior engineer. He's like a very junior engineer, but his requirement for his skill set wasn't a lot. His only for a year of experience. And the reason why is because we're going to train him. I'm going to train him everything that we need. So every tool that we have, he's going to get trained on. The certifications that I want to need, we're going to send him to training to get it. So he doesn't, those type of jobs, and they're out there, you don't have to actually have that much experience to get in. It's just, honestly, it's hard to find them because those jobs are kind of hidden. So I would just try to dig deep and try to find them. But yeah, because to go from Security Plus without kind of some kind of knowledge, that's a hard transition to jump over, because you could jump over and take the test and pass it. The problem is that you're going to have to translate that into actually doing the work. And so if you have your CISSP, the one thing is that the assumption is that you know how to do it because they ask you so much. So, and you should, and that's one of the prereqs. I think the CISSP, they ask for at least 6+ years of experience in some cases. Now you can take it without it, but they do ask you that. So you can take the boot camp, but the test, they ask you that stuff before you actually do it. Yeah. And make sure I didn't miss another question. Okay. So this is certifications, and okay. So this is a resource page. So that I wanted to put in here. So we talked about a lot about being cyber safe and protecting yourselves. And I do apologize if these links seem like they're more Bay Area heavy, but they are. But this is, so for folks in the Bay Area, these are links that you can use. But if you're not in the Bay Area, if you're any other state, city, you can still use these links to get an idea of what you should be looking for in your local police and local counties for reporting like scams or financial crimes. So these links are some resources where you can actually get directly to the research you need to report like thefts or scams or things like that. The other 2 links below where it says report malware or phishing. So these 2 email addresses are actually for the Department of Homeland Security. So if you ever get a phishing email that you don't think anybody's ever seen, you can actually send it directly to them, and they use that information to see. They compile a list and they track these different emails to see who's been getting them, where they're coming from, and then they actually share it out to people like me for the industry to know, and they send us a report to know where particular folks have been sending this stuff from. So that's another mechanism that you can send to, because I think sometimes some of us we don't. When you don't know where you can actually report things to, you think you're by yourself, and you're not. There's a lot of resources out there that if you ever are in a financial situation where someone takes your money or gets scammed, you don't just have the bank to help you. You actually do have your different public safety agencies that actually have units inside of them that are dedicated to deal with this stuff every single day. In San Francisco, for the police department, they have literally a financial crimes unit that's what they deal with. The Alameda County, they have a whole nother unit that deals with that. And so a lot of the other cities and counties and states, they have the same exact thing. Sometimes they just don't put it in, I guess, view for you to see directly. You have to really dig for it. But they are there. So you're not by yourself. And just for Northern California, there's a website. There's actually a company called the NCRIC, so the Northern California Regional Intelligence Center. So you can actually use them as well to report financial emails, everything. The nice thing about them is that you actually, if you put in a online kind of like request or a claim or a report, they actually have a duty officer who actually will call you and talk to you and to understand what's going on. Yes, thank you for that. Yes, MS ISAC, Cal CSIC, yep, all of those. Thank you for that. And then, so the last website that I have here on this resource at the bottom, and I'm actually going to share my screen on this one. I'm going to switch over real quick and share that. Here we go. Share. Hope you all can see that. And that's the website I went to. Oh, I'm sorry. This thing is in my way. All right, there we go. So can all of you see my screen right now? Just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. So this is a website that I use, and I actually found this resource came to me when I went to a cyber conference. So this website is cyberseek.org. And so I like this site because it shows you the breakdown of jobs throughout the nation for cybersecurity. And so just at an overview of the United States, a national level. So this today is how many jobs are open in cybersecurity. And then I like them because they break down the top cybersecurity job titles, which I thought was really cool. And if you actually click down into one of the states, it changes to tell you how many jobs are available in each state, and their workforce for cybersecurity, everything. And it's pretty cool. The other thing I liked about it, which really why I went here is not just for that, is the pathway part. So if you're not sure of like what path that you can go to or where you can pivot to, they kind of have this nice little cool breakdown. So let's just say you want, you know, your future role is software development, and well, they actually tell you the different paths that you can go to. So from software development, you could go to be a pen tester, a cyber analyst, a cybersecurity engineer, and an architect. And if you actually click, let's go back here, you can actually see the top skills. So if you click on each one and you scroll down, it gives you a basic salary, but it shows you the certifications that someone in that position may have or may seek, or what job people that are hiring for these positions may actually reach out for, or that they may want. And also gives you the top skills that are requested for that particular job. And so I thought this was a good resource to share. This is something that I use this for myself to kind of keep, you know, brush up my skills to make sure I'm not falling behind. But just like if you're in networking, you can kind of see the entry-level positions that you can go into, the next stage of your career that you can go into, and then the advanced stage, you know, going to an architect. So you can see all the top skills that someone would need. So like one that I focus on a lot is Linux. I know in a lot of development, Linux is huge, and Linux is huge in security. Most of the best hacking pen testing tools are done in Linux. And just recently they released, one of the companies I deal with, they released a Windows version of hacking. But so this, like I said before, having skills that now, like with Linux administration, development, coding, those skills are all used in cybersecurity in some form or fashion, anywhere. Whether it's you're being an engineer, whether you're doing malware development or backend engineering, whether you're developing the code or the application for the hardware for an appliance, all of those skills are used in this industry. And as you can see, back on that interactive map, the jobs, there's not enough people to fill these jobs. And that's what's happening. And it's kind of sad because there's just not enough people just don't know. And I think if more people knew, they would try to hop over and come in. It is a very competitive industry, but there is a lot of jobs and it's a lot of work that can be done, and it's fun. It's not all cybersecurity is not all policy based. That's one thing that I did not want to go into in my career is policy. I'm not a policy person. I'm more of a hands-on operations kind of person. So I stuck to the cyber defense side of things, where we analyze the threats and protect. In chat, what is this website? Oh, let's take a peek. Let's take a peek, shall we? Oh, so so this is a threat map. So Looking Glass, for all of you who've never heard of Looking Glass before, Looking Glass is a service that you can purchase, not individually, but companies purchase to look for different threats on the dark web. So when your credentials are stolen, when credit card numbers are stolen, Bitcoin, all this stuff, your email addresses and stuff like that get stolen, the dark web is where they sell it, right? That's the term we use, dark web, but it is actually the dark web. This is one of those sites where they just give you like an overview of threats. I can actually give you, so if I show you this one too, and it's similar, but it's not the same. So a lot of companies have these different ones. They show their threats, like FireEye has one threat map, and theirs looks totally different. So this is their threat map. So what they do is they kind of try to show a visual representation of their customers' products and where their threats are coming from in real time. So they try to give you this visualization to show you where threats are coming from. So that essentially, this threat map from Looking Glass is similar to this, is exactly what that is, just shown in a different way. Okay, so let me switch back over to this guy. Okay. All right. So yeah, so cyberseek.org, that's a site. I'll make sure I post it in the chat too for a resource. But if you're like thinking about coming into the industry, you're thinking about not sure where to go, I would look at that site and kind of get an idea of what certs or what skill sets you would need to attempt to come on over. And I would go there. It's a great resource. Okay. Do you have a DOP enforced in your work, and how do you know that? So we do. So various departments do have a DOP. And the way you will know you have a DOP is that when you try to send out sensitive information. So the easiest test is try to email something that has a make up of a dummy social security number. If you try to send it to yourself and it gets stripped when it comes to you, that's how you know you have a DOP. Try to send any document that's safe. I mean, not safe, but that's like company property out. And if they have a DOP, they won't let you send it to yourself. How do you implement a DOP? It's various ways. So depending on your email provider, some of them have DOPs built in, depending on who you're using. There's other companies out there like Avanan, Proofpoint, Microsoft with the encryption and DOP that you can enable that stuff. Microsoft's DOP and encryption is based off of license. So if you're in an enterprise environment, you actually have to subscribe to a higher tier license because they have a license tier. So if you're an E1 license, you may have to go to an E5 to get subscription to the DOP and encryption part. But there's various ways. And there's some, and they're not hard. I think the hardest part is really defining your company's policy of what you want the DOP to enforce. So you have common stuff that you're enforcing. So like prime example, like you would never want someone to send, social security numbers out like that in clear text. So there's common practice stuff that you're going to set up, but it really comes down to the policies of the company and if they've been properly defined for you to actually set that up. Yes, DMARC is good for avoiding phishing emails. DMARC is actually something that we're working on now. So that helps you because the verification of where the emails are coming from. So if you can, I would definitely, you don't have to invest the money right away. I would do a POC with a good DMARC company to actually see how they work and then go from there. That's what we did. We kind of did a POC with a few folks that are in the DMARC space to see how they're going, and then we're going to make our decision once we're done. For DMARC, you could do some of it. You can do some of it for sure. Yeah, to save, right. But when you're in the enterprise, saving money is there's no such thing as saving money when you're in the enterprise. What you mean saving money? No. So I'm at the end of the presentation, and I want to leave enough time for questions, more questions, and any other comments anyone wants to chime in on. Okay. So here we have a question. All right, I'm a third software engineer major at Chapel University, and I'm very interested in cybersecurity for my master's degree. What kind of side projects can I start doing to put on my resume? Also, Chaplin does not offer cybersecurity programs. Wow. What kind of side projects? And I gotta brainstorm on that to think about a side project. Let me think on that one for a minute, Cindy. That's a good question. While I'm thinking on that one, please don't hesitate to throw me any more questions. And matter of fact, let me put the CyberSeek information in the list here. Get that the heat map. So I'll paste that in there, and I will also send my contact info, my personal email. And if anyone has any questions after this, you can feel free to email me directly, and I'll get back to you. Yes, you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Yes, you can. So Cindy, I'm thinking about side projects. So one thing that I would probably thinking of that would probably be straightforward is if you could maybe like with I don't know how like with community centers, like maybe helping them do like cybersecurity training, like something like this, or even helping them understand how to do vulnerability testing, which is really easy because there's software that can do that. Yeah, drop me a line to my email, and I want to think about this one some more because there's quite a few things I think you can do to put in your resume, and I can kind of go through some stuff that I've done in the past and share with you as well. Good question. So what's the best EDR? So here's a question. What's the best EDR you suggest for cloud? CrowdStrike or Trend Micro? So for all you don't know, so EDR, event detection and response. So honestly, it depends on what you're gonna do or how you're gonna respond to it. So EDR is only as good as who's gonna be responding or looking at the alerts, right? So I would want to ask, if you were to go with the CrowdStrike or Trend Micro, who's going to be looking at the alerts? Like, where's the intel coming from? That's the question I would have. That's what I would ask first. Okay, let me scroll. We have another question. Question is, are the certifications penetration cert, are they independent study, like you study on your own and take the test? Yes, so they are. So you can actually, you can do like an online thing. You can actually get the book and study and take the test. You can. You don't actually have to sit in a classroom setting if you want, but they do offer it. Now, some of this stuff, like when I did my CISSP and a couple other ones, I did do the boot camp setting just because I wanted to be around people. And it's kind of nice to be able to bounce ideas off of somebody else, because when you think about when you're in the classroom setting, even if you can do it online with a live instructor is actually nice, because you get to engage with someone who has the skill set. So if you may have a question and you may not be 100% sure, it's nice to be able to ask that to somebody. But you can do it on your own. It's not, you don't have to go to a class. You don't have to pay all. You can get the books, read them, take the practice test, and then go ahead and take your test. So if you take the practice test and you score high enough on the practice test, they always say you can go to the actual test and pass it, as long as you get a high enough passing score. So yeah, you can. Is there a required amount of hours to attend the class? Some of them do. So for the CISSP, it is a week-long boot camp, 8:30. I think we started at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't get out of class until about 6:30. So it's like going to work. Some of these classes, most of them, if it's a boot camp, they're going to be all day. I mean, they do give you a break, but they are going to be all day long, and it's just like having a full-time job. I'll be honest. So if you're going to go to a boot camp, hopefully your job understands that, and they endorse you, so they don't give you any more work to do, because you're not going to be able to focus on work and trying to take a big test or do a boot camp, because you need to be able to focus. Is there a deadline to take a Riteca test? So some of them, so with most certifications, if you buy the test voucher, they'll give you, after the boot camp, they give you, like, some of them are 2 to 3 months that you have to take the test. If you take it and you fail, they will let you take a retake, but you have to make sure that you don't have to pay for it. Some of them want you to pay for the retake, or some of them actually have a retake built in. So just make sure you read the fine print to see what your options are, because if you fail the first one and you take the retake, sometimes they give you a longer time that you have to wait now to take your retake test. So you don't have the option to come right back. You have to wait. In some certs, you have to wait 6 months, 3 to 6 months to take the retake test. And I understand why, because they don't want you just like, oh, come back so many times and then you start getting used to the test questions. That's one of the things that they do. Let's see. Question that we have in chat is, can I do a webinar or pen test, or a webinar or how spoofing works? I could do that. I could do how spoofing works. I could do one on pen testing too. I have used tools to do pen testing. And I would definitely want to show you all some actual, like, redacted information that from an actual pen test, so you can see how it is. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up. It's just something I did forget to show you all. So I wanted to show you all a new variant of an email. So, and I tried to redact as much information as I could in the email. And I just for your awareness. So I took the screenshots from some places. So this is what you're looking at. You're looking at an email that came to a user, and I had to redact some stuff, but the email came to him and the user thought they had an attachment. They thought it was a PDF attachment. And you can see here that I actually put, this was not an actual attachment. It actually was an image. Now, what makes this very compelling is that most of you, if you know, when you put an attachment in an email, when you, anything that's an attachment, not an image, the email systems, they know how to look at a file that's attached to an email and determine what it is. When you attach an image to an email, most modern day email security systems, they don't know how to detect the image. They just, some of them just aren't they can't detect anything. So this particular email bypassed the email system. And if you read the body of the email, it's saying that this is a payment admittance note. So this is supposed to be a document for someone to get paid. So I'm gonna scroll down. So from this image with the user, if they were to click on it or double click like they traditionally do with an attachment, you would think it will open a PDF. In this case, it takes the user to a web page that says, hey, Office 365. Now, anybody that's using this, they may think that this is actually a real Office 365 login page, but it wasn't. This was a dummy Office 365 page that actually was set up to harvest people's credentials. And so I'm going to tie this back into where we were talking about multi-factor authentication. If in your enterprise, in your companies, in your businesses, if you set up multi-factor authentication, you're not too concerned about your user clicking on that link, because even if they log in, they're not going to, the hacker can't harvest the token to get into the account. But in this particular case, once the user clicked on it, they didn't have multi-factor authentication. They signed in with their username and their password. As soon as they hit submit, their credentials were taken. The bad thing is that they used that password probably in about 12 different websites. So not only were their credentials for their work, their home, everything, now they're gone. They're harvested. And so this is another example of that. So I just kind of wanted to share this as awareness. So just be mindful, like when you look at stuff now, like these two attachments look just like an Excel spreadsheet in a PDF, but the difference is when you click on it, it takes you to this page. And because most people have Office 365, they're like, you don't think about it. You're just like, oh, I have to log in and do this. No problem. I log in and you sign in. Now, I actually clicked on it. I logged into it because I had to see what it looked like. And the document, it actually is a legitimate document, but the site that you're going to is actually stealing the credentials for you or whoever is using it. So I wanted to share that because I promised I was going to share that. But that's something that's new that's coming out, and it's hitting people fairly hard because if they have the opportunity to spoof your email address, they make a dummy account that looks like someone in your company. Most users don't know to look at the email address, so they just assume that it is who it is, and they click on it, and they sign in, and then the damage is done. But if you put in these extra precautionary measures for security, for multi-factor authentication and stuff like that, you're lowering your risk, and you don't have to worry about it too much. So I did want to make sure I shared that. And did I miss? Okay, so yeah. And we still have more time for questions, so don't be shy, everyone. Please ask away. Okay, so sorry, let me move this one down. Get back to that. Okay. Uh-oh. Did my screen stop? Yep, it did. There we go. All right, I'm going to close this one, and I'm actually going to, I'm actually going to share another thing on here real quick. Okay, there we go. Okay, I see the question in the chat. So DevOps and DevSecOps. So DevSecOps is kind of like where I'm at, what my team does and what our cybersecurity team does. Yeah, that is I can go into detail. Hold on, let me pull this thing up. That breaks that down fairly well because I don't want to tongue twist myself. And I still have the question box open just in case, so I won't miss any more questions. Okay, so there was a thing that I had looked at before about that. Oh, Oh, okay, yeah, I can do a separate webinar on that because they are totally different. One is, you know, the strategy of like delivery, and the other one is services. So it's a whole different methodology that we do. So I could do that as well. I'm making notes for all of these different webinars just to brush myself up on those. So I'm taking notes. So apologize for my typing. So we have, all right. So another question in the chat. Would these certifications be enough for someone who is switching fields into tech, or would you recommend another introductory course? So if I were to say those certifications are enough, um, if you're brand new um, into coming into like tech, IT, or security, I would start with the CompTIA. So like if you have never done IT at all, I would probably say I would start, and this is gonna sound like I'm being mean, but I would start at A plus, because I'm a firm believer in building your foundation first. Um, because no matter what you do in IT, troubleshooting, there's fundamentals of troubleshooting. I don't care what you troubleshoot, if it's security, if it's networking, you have to be able to break down that and use the basic troubleshooting techniques. So I will start with A plus because that deals with hardware and OSs, and it's gonna. I think they've revamped it now because I've taken it a long time ago. So now I think they make you redo your cert every year. I took it back when you take it once and you have it for life. So they've changed it to where it talks about hardware and software, and then I would move from there into networking, and then from there into security, because those three components alone, they all build on top of each other. So when you do the A plus, it's going to talk about networking. When you do the networking, it's going to talk about security, and vice versa. And so that's going to give you that basic foundation, so you can pivot over into a cyber certification. So if you want to do like a ethical hacker cert, you have that basic foundation to understand certain networking technologies or certain hardwares or OSs that you may not understand if you go directly to it. And that's just one thing that I say. Some people, you know, they agree with me, and some people do and they don't. But from my experience, for where I came from and how I started, that's how I would do it. It just makes it easier for you in the long run. Um, yeah, Dar, you're right. Every 3 years, right? The two testing. You're right. Yeah, but see, I took mine back when they actually didn't. They had the two tests, but once I took it, I'm in it for life, so I never have to renew it at all anymore, which is great. Okay, we have another question. Hi, Nathan. I've been an IT technician for 2 years and currently getting my master's degree in IT. I have a strong interest in cybersecurity. What certification could you advise me to start with? You know, since you've been in IT for about 2 years, you can. So I have a question. Do you have any certs now? Have you done Security Plus and Network Plus yet, or what do you have right now? And then while you respond to me on that one, let's see. Okay, none right now. Got you. If you already have a good understanding of like networking and stuff, you could pivot into one of the higher certs. And let me pull this back up for everyone. The slides, and we'll go back to that because I think that's a good representation. So I mean, you could actually attempt to do your CISSP, but I would probably start with the Security Plus first, just to get your feet wet, to get into it, because there's enough in there to get a good understanding of, you know, security. And then there's, like I said, these are just the CompTIA. There's another resource that I'm gonna look up, but they actually have some other certifications from some other places. But I would do Security Plus because you already have the 2 years experience in IT. That's going to give you a little bit more than what you have, and then you can pivot from there over. And it just gives you, it helps you. It just helps you with some of that missing components that you might not have. So I would do that first. And that book is thick in itself too. So it's not as hard as it's nowhere close to CISSP, but Yeah, it's enough in there to make your head spin too. Okay, Dear, I think you asked me, what is SOAR? So security orchestration, automation, and response, and how are they different from a SIM? That's a good question. So I like that one. That's a very good one because we're actually we actually have both. We're doing SOAR and a SIM. So SOAR, like it's broken down, security orchestration, automation, and response. So think of a process that you have to do manually every single day. So let's take, for instance, if you had a firewall and you had a URL filter to block certain websites. And so every time somebody, comes in, you might not want them to go to a certain site, or you might want to unblock the site. Let's take the unblocking side of it. So every time someone goes to a site, it's blocked. And every time you want to make that change, you have to go in there manually and change it. With the SOAR product, you can build a process or workflow where it's automated. So you can build a form, or you can have it ingested into the SOAR product to where it can look at certain fields of the request. And if it says, okay, this is blocked, you can say, now, when you see blocked, send me either an email, send me a text, and now you can approve the workflow to automatically unblock the website. And that's just like one of the examples. So if I had a phishing email come in and I had it come in from 6 people, or let's say I had it come from 1,000 people, I can have a process that has this one email that comes in as phishing. I can have the security orchestration tool look across my tools to see who else has this email. If they have the email, now I want you to use another workflow to use Microsoft or Gmail or whatever tool I have to now quarantine the message from the user. And then after you quarantine it, send a response to me and to the user to say that we quarantine the email. So a SOAR product is a way to automate responses for security. And it's to help save its time and efficiency. On that website that I show with CyberSec, there are a lot of security jobs open. So that means staffing is low. And so the only way to be able to keep up with the demand of security and the demand of threats is you have to find out a way to basically respond to them quickly. So how do you filter down, let's just say 50,000 events down to the most critical events that you actually want to deal with? Well, using a SOAR product helps you with that because it prioritizes everything that you do, and you can automatically, a lot of the things that are repetitive, you can automate, and some of the things that you need to do a deeper dive into before you actually take an action, you can do that. A SIM product is a security information event manager. So I don't know if anyone's heard of Splunk or QRadar. These are platforms that ingest data. So think about your firewalls, your laptop data, your email data, Wi-Fi traffic, internet traffic. Think about, yes, Splunk, Exabeam, Insight, exactly. So those tools are, they're data collectors. Now, Exabeam and Splunk, they're competitors because they both have a component called UBA, User Behavior Analytics, which is something that I think everyone should be trying to move to, but it costs a lot of money. But those tools collect data, and they give you the ability to, like with Splunk, it gives you the ability to build dashboards on certain types of data. One dashboard, and I'm going to keep talking, I'm actually going to pull it up real quick, is Splunk for Good COVID-19 dashboard. So Splunk came out with their Splunk for Good came out with a COVID-19 dashboard to show you like what was going on in the world. And I'm actually going to pull that up real quick. But so that's what a SIM is. A SIM is a data collector for you to look at triggers, build alerts off of your data. But when you put the user UBA on top, like Exabeam has and like Splunk has, now you're not just looking at data, you're looking at a user's behavior. So now if I have, like for myself, I can say, well, I know something's going on with Nathan's account because Nathan never logs into machine A or D. He only logs into machine B and C. And that's an anomaly. And so, but using the data and using the UBA on top, you can start to build these different models to where you can actually predict things before they happen, or actually know when something's happening before the user knows it's happening, which is kind of cool. Yeah, so that's the difference between the two. And here we go. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll show you what, this is one of the companies that we have some stuff with, but this is Splunk for Good. I hope y'all can see my screen. Yeah, so Splunk for Good came out with these various dashboards for like COVID-19. And this is data that they pulled from different places. And so this is the SIM component of Splunk that is doing all of this. But this is the type of stuff that you can build using the SIM tool. Like they say, turning data into doing. And you can look at trends across the world and you can click into it. You can see, they let you click in? Oh, I guess this one they don't. And they had several ones. So like this one is the US versus the world one that they built. Dashboard for COVID-19. So that's kind of like showing you what Splunk can do with that. And XBeam has the same thing as well. Question, which is better to implement, CIS controls or STIG? Oh, man, neither one is easy. Honestly, we're doing this. They're all hard just because, you know, when you start going through all the different controls, you see where your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses are. And, you know, I don't have a preference. If I have to say NIST just because we're doing it. But they've all been difficult because we've had to change policies, build policies. We've had to get more data. We've had to do more scanning, more stuff. It's just once you adopt a control and you stick with it, then you identify where you're deficient at. It's just a ton of work, especially if you're behind. And so I won't say either one is easier. I can't say which one is easier. I don't think any of them are easy. But yeah, they're all hard because they just add more work to you until you get to the point where you have everything. Well, not everything, until you get to a point of risk that you can tolerate, because you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to have enough people to actually implement every single thing. You just have to get to a point where your risk tolerance is low enough for you to deal with. Oh, so sticks and taxi, that's how you actually put in, so sticks and taxi is how you put in different indicators into like different tools. So like I think you posted up, so the question was the difference between sticks and taxi. So you posted up in the chat about two sites like MS-ISAC and CalCSIC. So they have different indicators of compromise that they share in the community. And so various tools take these different, I guess, languages, and that's how you put them into the tool. So some of our tools, we can actually do both sticks and taxi. And it's just how you input it into the tool and how the actual indicators are written over in the language, if I'm making sense. Yeah, so this is the COVID, and let's see, they have some couple other dashboards in here. Yeah, this is all COVID-19 related dashboards from Splunk, but this is their Splunk for Good side of the house where they kind of use data to show what's going on. And a very, very cool company. We have our own dashboards and stuff that we also share as well for our city departments and stuff like that. But when you have data, you have to think a little differently. When you get data, it's not like, what can you do? Is what do you want to see? So when we deal with some of our departments that have never had Splunk or for security, when they give us their data, the first thing we ask them is, what do you want to see? And they look at us kind of side-eyed because they're like, what do you mean? And as you see with these dashboards, data can tell a story, a huge story if you have the right amount of data. Okay, so the question in chat is, what's the difference between threat hunting and threat intelligence? So threat hunting is actually looking for the threat that may be in your environment. So that's what a threat hunter is, right? So if I had a threat hunter, which I wish I had one, they would look for people trying to get into our network and look for the vulnerabilities or look for people that are in the network already that we might not see with the tools and the information we have. The threat intelligence is the intel that you gather on someone that is trying to hunt you. So like take example, like a hacker. You would take intel of like their techniques of what they're using to get into an environment, what vulnerabilities they're using. You'll find out what IP addresses they're coming from, what region of the country they live in, all that stuff. That all is compiled, and that's called threat intel. And threat intel normally has IOCs. So IOCs is an abbreviation of indicators of compromise. So an indicator is something that you can run in your environment to see if you have this threat present. Excuse me. So that those indicators come from the threat intel. That's kind of learning your adversary, learning what they're doing, how they're doing it. Another piece of intel is how long does a threat or a hacker stay in your environment after they hack you? Do they come back? So it's like building a character of the threat of how they do things. Okay, so what does APT 29, APT 30, et cetera mean in attack miter? So APT is abbreviation for an advanced persistent threat. So APT numbers are given based on from the threat intel companies based on their the information they give them. So I'm actually going to pivot over to FireEye because they're actually one of the, so I don't know how many people's heard of FireEye or Mandiant. FireEye and Mandiant back, I don't know if you remember the Sony breach. So Mandiant was the services side of FireEye that actually went in and helped them clean up their stuff when everything was going on with them when they got attacked. So this is the names APT 29, APT 30 are the names they give to a particular threat actor based on what they're doing. So there is on this site, where is it? Resources. There it is, right here. And they publish these reports. You can get these, you can actually get them for free. But so they actually put these different names to different actors. And so based on what the acting group is doing, they have a different name and they break down what the actors do. And this is where the question about threat intel. So this is threat intel about the advanced persistent threat 39 for what they do. So this breaks down exactly what they do. This is like a summary of what they do, but in the actual report, they will have IOC, so indicators of compromise of what they do. So this particular one, it says targeted sectors, while APT 39's targeted scope is global, its activities is concentrated in the Middle East. APT 39 has prioritized telecommunication sector and additional targeting of travel industry and IT firms that support IT and the high-tech industry. Now, you might ask, how does this company know exactly what they're doing? Well, you have to have either people, hardware, in places to see this type of information. So, this company is one of many. Fire is one of many. Palo Alto, Cisco. Cisco has the Talos division, which is their threat folks. Palo Alto has Unit 40, is it Unit 41? That's their threat hunters as well. That puts the intel into their hardware and their software. They have people in places throughout the world, and they have gear throughout the world that can see information on the internet, on the dark web. And so they collect all of this stuff, and they have analysts that sit there, and that's all they do is look at data, and they look at trends, and they look at different anomalies, and they compile all of this information together to come up with this summary of information that you see on the screen of what the actors actually do. And then also remember too, is that they also are a company to help when companies get hacked. So the information that they actually collect when they're out there helping remediation, doing remediation for an incident, all the information that they collect goes into building these different summaries or white papers on, a different group of attackers. That this is what that actually is. This is all intel that they build. So it's from the tools, from the people that's in the field, all the way down to companies that get hacked. They collect all of that and compile this information and put it together. And this is just, this is just one of the reports that they compile. They have a really nice annual report that actually shows you, I think it's by industry. I think I can pull it up. I shouldn't have to log in or anything. I mean, this is available. This is like open. It's not like hidden to anyone. Actually, I'll do this one. The intel report. Oh, shoot, I do have to download it. I should have pulled it up, or I'm sorry. And then you asked me the attack miter framework. So that's a framework. So where is that site? And I should have pulled that. It's another resource. There's another good one that actually shows the attack miter framework. And that's the different stages of an attack. And that might be a good another webinar, is to go through the different stages of the attack lifecycle, of different stages where attack starts and how it ends, and all of that stuff as well. I'm gonna see if I can pull that one up real quick, because I did take a note on it. And yeah, here it is. This is another good site. This one, no, they took it down. No, I think I just did it wrong. Let me pause that real quick. Cool, I'll use that one. Yeah, so this is exactly similar to what I was going to use too. So yeah, the framework of an attack. This is, we can go into a lot of detail on the framework of the attack monitor framework, but so different attacks have there's different phases of an attack and different techniques that are used. And so I'm going to see if I can use one. Yes, this is like the pre-attack techniques. So like getting your information still in, yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot. Somebody asked me a question. Oh, are bug bounty hunters a security person? Not necessarily. Some of them are, because some of them do that. They have bug bounties for good. So that was a question: are bug bounty hunter security person? Some are, some not. But some of them are. Some are hackers, and they're hackers for money. I mean, but they're hacking for good, I should say. And I've actually used a couple of those programs before where we've done that. And it actually works very well, because, think about if you have a critical system that you have for, the public, and you rather for someone to find out the vulnerability for you and pay them versus somebody else finding out and then they hack you and they hold you ransom. So the folks that normally do that, some of them are security, but some of them aren't. Some of them are actually, they're coders. It's surprising or not. They use various tools. They know how to use vulnerabilities. So they do it for good, and some of them do it for bad. And there's quite a few bug bounty programs out there that a lot of the big corporations use to actually have themselves to find vulnerabilities in their own software before someone else does. And they have like a pot of money. And so if you find a vulnerability as that bug bounty hunter person, you find it, you report it, you get paid, which is actually pretty cool. And I actually like dealing with them most often. I think we're going to do one of those here soon on some of the stuff we have.
This session has been really great. Gotta fix my camera. The session has been really great. We've had a very active Q&A session and just overall really active chat throughout this. We've got a lot of really good information, but we are running up on like 7:05.
Right.
So we were able to cover all of the questions in the chat. I want to be respectful of everyone's time and make sure we don't scare off Nathan and make sure he comes back again, because this was really good. We have a lot of ideas of things that we can do workshops and spin-offs off of this one, but I would just like to point out that cybersecurity is such a broad industry, as we've seen from this webinar, and there is a lot of information out there. And just want to say again that Nathan has offered out his contact info and said that he is willing to help people who reach out to him. I want everyone to know that they can definitely join the Tech by Choice community, and we will be there to support you as well. We have resources and contacts and a lot of information to help everyone on whichever path that they choose. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and follow up with everyone in an email that's going to go over some of our next webinars, as well as some of the discussions and different online events that we will be planning, and any surprises that we have from our company sponsors and things like that. So please make sure you join and become a TBC member through that email. Trying to just make sure that I got all the questions in the chat. Yeah, so you can find us on Eventbrite. I know some people came from Eventbrite tonight. We also have Meetup Groups. We have a chapter out in Oakland and a chapter out in LA. So if you're on Meetup, definitely look for us there. And if you're on Eventbrite, you can check out the Tech by Choice org page, and we'll have information there. But again, if you sign up for the Tech by Choice membership, you will get all of the information for the chapter websites, the meetups, the Eventbrite, all of that good stuff, and you'll always be looped in. Okay. And we did drop the Tech by Choice website in the chat. And a lot of the links and resources that were in the chat tonight will go out in that resource email, and we will be uploading this video to YouTube. Give us about 3 to 5 days to get everything up there and ready to go, but links and all of that good stuff will be there as well. It's always awkward because I'm trying to like give that pause to see if any questions or anything comes up. But as long as no one has any more questions or anything like that, oh, well, I should ask, does anyone have any more questions? Give it a few minutes. But it looks like we're okay with the questions. And again, thank you so much for coming on and supporting the community like this. This has been a really great turnout and a really engaging topic. We can't wait to have you come back and speak on this topic again. But for now, I'll go ahead and close out this session for tonight. Again, stay connected with us and we can do a learning session like this again in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.